Electricity powers our transport, heating, lighting, communications, computation, and a host of essential services that we take for granted. However, electricity has much more important aspects because it is a fundamental feature of all matter. Electrical phenomena has been studied since antiquity, though advances in the science were not made until the 17th and 18th centuries. Practical applications for electricity, however, remained few, and it would not be until the late 19th century that engineers were able to put it to industrial and residential use. The history of electricity begins with William Gilbert. Before William Gilbert, all that was known about electricity and magnetism was that the lodestone possessed magnetic properties, and that rubbing amber and jet would attract bits of stuff to start sticking. In 1600, William Gilbert published his treatise De Magnet. Printed in scholarly Latin, the book explained years of Gilbert's research and experiments on electricity and magnetism. Gilbert raised the interest in the new science greatly. It was Gilbert who coined the expression electrica in his famous book. In 1733, Charles Francois Dufay discovered that electricity comes in two forms, which he called negative and positive. The Leyden jar was the original capacitor, a device that stores and releases an electrical charge. At that time, electricity was considered the mysterious fluid or force. In 1745, the Leyden jar was invented in Holland and Germany almost simultaneously. Both Dutch physicist Peter van Musschenbroek and German clergyman and scientist Ewald Christian von Kleist invented a Leyden jar. When von Kleist first touched his Leyden jar, he received a powerful shock that knocked him to the floor. The Leyden jar was named after Musschenbroek's hometown and University Leyden by Abbé Nollet, a French scientist who first coined the term Leyden jar. The jar was once called the Kleisten jar after von Kleist, but his name did not stick. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706. He was the 15th child out of a total of 17 brothers and sisters. Franklin worked numerous jobs during his lifetime, including as a printer for the Philadelphia Gazette. Franklin's most famous discovery was that electricity and lightning were one and the same. Ben Franklin's lightning rod was the first practical application of electricity. Henry Cavendish of England, Coulomb of France, and Luigi Galvani of Italy made scientific contributions towards finding practical uses for electricity. In 1747, Cavendish started measuring the conductivity, the ability to carry an electrical current, of different materials and published his results. In 1786, Luigi Galvani, an Italian physician, demonstrated what we now understand to be the electrical basis of nerve impulses. Galvani made frog muscles twitch by jolting them with a spark from an electrostatic machine. Following the work of Cavendish and Galvani came a group of important scientists and inventors, including Alessandro Volta of Italy, Hans Ørsted of Denmark, André Ampère of France, George Ohm of Germany, Michael Faraday of England, and Joseph Henry of America. Joseph Henry was a researcher in the field of electricity whose work inspired inventors. Hans Christian Ørsted was a Danish physicist and chemist who discovered that electric currents create magnetic fields, an important aspect of electromagnetism. During a lecture, Ørsted noticed a compass needle deflected from magnetic north when an electric current from a battery was switched on and off, confirming a direct relationship between electricity and magnetism. Ørsted's findings stirred much research into electrodynamics throughout the scientific community, and his work also represented a major step toward a unified concept of energy. André Ampère, a French physicist and mathematician, is generally regarded as one of the main discoverers of electromagnetism. As a high school teacher, George Ohm began his research with the new electrochemical cell, invented by Italian scientist Alessandro Volta. Using equipment of his own creation, Ohm found that there is a direct proportionality between the potential difference applied across a conductor and the resultant electric current. This relationship is known as Ohm's law. Michael Faraday was a British scientist, chemist, physicist, and philosopher who greatly contributed to the fields of electromagnetism and electrochemistry. His main discoveries included the magnetic field, electromagnetic induction, diamagnetism, and electrolysis. Although Faraday received little formal education and knew little of higher mathematics, he was one of the most influential scientists in history. Historians of science refer to him as having been the best experimentalist in the history of science. It was Faraday's research on the magnetic field around a conductor carrying a DC electric current that he established the basis for the concept of the electromagnetic fields in physics. Faraday also established that magnetism could affect rays of light and that there was an underlying relationship between the two phenomena. One of Faraday's 1831 experiments, demonstrating induction, shows the liquid battery sending an electric current through the small coil. When it is moved in or out of the large coil, its magnetic field induces a momentary voltage in the coil, which is detected by the galvanometer. His inventions of the electromagnetic rotary devices formed the foundation of electric motor technology, and it was largely due to his efforts that electricity became viable for use in technology. In 1839, he completed a series of experiments aimed at investigating the fundamental nature of electricity. Faraday used static batteries and animal electricity to produce the phenomena of electrostatic attraction, electrolysis and magnetism, among others. He concluded that, contrary to the scientific opinion of the time, the divisions between the various kinds of electricity were illusory. Faraday instead proposed that only a single electricity exists, and the changing values of current and voltage would produce different groups of phenomena. In 1824, Joseph Henry was employed as an assistant engineer on a survey team for a state road between the Hudson River and Lake Erie. The experience changed the course of his career. He decided to study civil and mechanical engineering instead of medicine, thus beginning his work with magnets. Joseph Henry's first discovery was that the power of a magnet could be immensely strengthened by winding it with insulated wire. He was the first person to make a magnet that could lift 3,500 pounds of weight. Henry showed the difference between quantity magnets composed of short lengths of wire connected in parallel and excited by a few large cells, and intensity magnets wound with a single long wire and excited by a battery composed of cells in a series. This was an original discovery, greatly increasing both the immediate usefulness of the magnet and its possibilities for future experiments. Using his newly developed electromagnetic principle, Henry created one of the first machines to use electromagnetism for motion. This was the earliest ancestor of the modern DC motor and allowed Henry to recognise the property of self-inductance. Henry died on the 13th of May 1878 and was buried in Oak Hill Cemetery in the Georgetown section of northwest Washington, D.C. William Sturgeon was an English physicist and inventor who made the first electromagnets and invented the first practical English electric motor. It was his invention of the electromagnet that encouraged researchers to experiment with it, resulting in attempts to send signals by electricity. However, it was Joseph Henry who discovered the essential mechanics behind the electric telegraph. Arc light is the general term for a class of lamps that produce light by an electric arc. The arc light as a practical illuminating device was invented in 1878 by Charles Brush. Other inventors improved the arc light, but there were drawbacks. For outdoor lighting and large halls, arc lights worked well, but arc lights could not be used in small rooms. The problem of indoor lighting was to be solved by one of America's most famous inventors.
Discover the past with exclusive history documentaries and ad-free podcasts presented by world-renowned historians, all from History Hit. Watch them on your smart TV or on the go with your mobile device. Download the app now to explore everything, from the wonders of ancient Pompeii and the mystery of the princes in the tower to the life of Anne Boleyn and D-Day. Sign up via the link in the description.
Thomas Edison is the fourth most prolific inventor in history, holding 1,093 US patents in his name, as well as many patents in the United Kingdom, France and Germany. He is credited with numerous inventions that contributed to mass communication, and in particular telecommunications. These included a stock ticker, a mechanical vote recorder, a battery for an electric car, electrical power, recorded music and motion pictures. His advanced work in these fields was an outgrowth of his early career as a telegraph operator. Edison originated the concept and implementation of electric power generation and distribution to homes, businesses and factories, a crucial development in the modern industrialized world. His first power station was on Manhattan Island, New York. Building on the contributions of other developers over the previous 3/4 of a century, Edison made improvements to the idea of incandescent light and entered the public consciousness as the inventor of the light bulb and a prime mover in developing the necessary infrastructure for electric power. After many experiments with platinum and other metal filaments, Edison returned to carbon filament. The first successful test was on October 22, 1879. It lasted 13.5 hours. Edison continued to improve his design and by November 4, 1879, filed for a US patent for an electric lamp. Although the patent describes several ways of creating the carbon filament, including cotton and linen thread, wood splints, papers coiled in various ways, it was not until several months after the patent was granted that Edison and his team discovered a carbonized bamboo filament that could last over 1,200 hours. Edison's true success, like that of his friend Henry Ford, was in his ability to maximize profits through establishment of mass production systems and intellectual property rights. In 1887, there were 121 Edison power stations in the United States, delivering DC electricity to customers. When the limitations of DC were discussed by the public, Edison launched a propaganda campaign to convince people that AC was far too dangerous to use. The war against AC led him to become involved in the development and promotion of the electric chair, using AC as an attempt to portray AC to have greater lethal potential than DC. Edison went on to carry out a brief but intense campaign to ban the use of AC or to limit the allowable voltage for safety purposes. Edison patented a system for electricity distribution in 1880, which was essential to capitalize on the invention of the electric lamp. On December 17, 1880, Edison founded the Edison Illuminating Company. The company established the first investor-owned electric utility in 1882 on Pearl Street Station, New York City. It was on September 4, 1882, that Edison switched on his Pearl Street generating station's electrical power distribution system, which provided 110 volts direct current to 59 customers in Lower Manhattan. Earlier in the year, in January 1882, he had switched on the first steam-generating power station at Holborn Viaduct in London. The DC supply system provided electricity supplies to street lamps and several private dwellings within a short distance of the station. The key to Edison's fortunes was telegraphy. With knowledge gained from years of working as a telegraph operator, he learned the basics of electricity. This allowed him to make his early fortune with the stock ticker, the first electricity-based broadcast system. Edison patented the sound recording and the reproducing phonograph in 1878.
How does it feel to be 84 years old?
Well, it feels very fine to be 84 years of age if you don't have anything the matter with you. Well, I have a little trouble now and then, but that's because I'm getting old. But I've got a lot of ginger yet.
What do you think of the Einstein theory, Mr. Edison?
I don't think anything of Einstein's theory because I can't understand it.
Nikola Tesla was born in 1856 in Croatia. The son of a Serbian Orthodox clergyman, Tesla studied engineering at the Austrian Polytechnic School. He worked as an electrical engineer in Budapest and later emigrated to the United States in 1884 to work at the Edison Machine Works. During his lifetime, Tesla invented fluorescent lighting, the Tesla induction motor, the Tesla coil, and developed the alternating current electrical supply system that included a motor and transformer and three-phase electricity. Tesla's patents and theoretical work also formed the basis of wireless communication and the radio. A Tesla coil is an electrical resonant transformer circuit that is used to produce high voltage, low current, high frequency alternating current electricity. Tesla used these coils to conduct innovative experiments in electrical lighting, phosphorescence, X-ray generation, high frequency alternating current phenomena, electrotherapy, and the transmission of electrical energy without wires. In 1885, George Westinghouse, head of the Westinghouse Electric Company, bought the patents rights to Tesla's system of dynamos, transformers, and motors. Westinghouse used Tesla's alternating current system to light the World's Columbium Exposition of 1893 in Chicago. In the late 1880s, Tesla and American inventor Thomas Edison became adversaries, in part because of Edison's promotion of direct current for electric power distribution over the more efficient alternating current advocated by Tesla and Westinghouse. The problem with DC was that the power plants could economically deliver DC electricity only to customers within about 1.5 miles from the generating station, so that it was suitable only for central business districts. When George Westinghouse suggested using high voltage AC instead, as it could carry electricity hundreds of miles with marginal loss of power, Edison waged a war of currents to prevent AC from being adopted. As a result of the war of currents, Edison and Westinghouse went nearly bankrupt. In 1897, Tesla released Westinghouse from contract, providing Westinghouse a break from Tesla's patent royalties. In 1897, at age 41, Tesla filed the first radio patent. A year later, he demonstrated a radio-controlled boat to the US military, believing that the military would want things such as radio-controlled torpedoes. Remote radio control remained a novelty until World War I, and afterward, when a number of countries used it in military programs. In 1898, Tesla designed the Wardenclyffe Tower, an early wireless telecommunications tower intended for commercial transatlantic wireless telephony, broadcasting, and to demonstrate the transmission of power without interconnecting wires. In his Colorado Springs lab, Tesla researched ways to transmit power and energy wirelessly over long distances and discovered that the resonant frequency of the Earth was approximately 8 Hertz. At his peak, he was intimate with poets and scientists, industrialists and financiers, yet Tesla died destitute, having lost both his fortune and scientific reputation. During his fall from notoriety to obscurity, Tesla created a legacy of genuine invention and prophecy that still fascinates today. The use of electricity gives a very convenient way to transfer energy, and because of this, it has been adapted to a huge and growing number of uses. Electric cars were popular in the late 19th century and early 20th century, until advances in internal combustion engine technology and mass production of cheaper gasoline vehicles led to a decline in the use of the electric drive vehicle. The global economic recession in the late 2000s led to increased calls for automakers to abandon fuel and inefficient SUVs in favour of small cars, hybrid cars and electric cars. California electric car maker Tesla Motors began development in 2004 on the Tesla Roadster, which was first delivered to customers in 2008. The Roadster was the first highway-capable all-electric vehicle in serial production, available in the United States. Electrical vehicle company Vectrix developed the first commercially available high-performance maxi-sized electric scooter as another alternative to petrol-powered vehicles. Man is a fortunate species. Over thousands of years, our intelligence has given us tools and technology, art and science, society and civilization. We now possess a treasure house of man's great achievements. There have been many tremendous advances in technology over the last decade. So many, in fact, the pace is accelerating. Every day, new things are discovered with our ever-increasing scientific knowledge. Technology has also brought us closer together. Communicating with each other is instantaneous. We have all become accustomed to the advantages that science has brought us. Today's modern world would simply be unimaginable without continuing progress. Architecture is being influenced by modern technology, and many new methods, techniques and processes have been introduced in their respective field over the last few decades. Architecture has a great importance, as constructing minor to huge structures is impossible without proper application of architectural concepts. The kind of architecture and designs that are practiced today are quite different from those practiced few centuries ago. With the increasing complexity of buildings, new engineering techniques and technology are employed. Architecture has become more multidisciplinary. It needs a team of professionals to execute the designs properly. In the last 2 decades, architecture has seen an increase in specialised techniques, project delivery and technological expertise. Architecture is basically a combination of science and art in the construction of buildings and the design of different physical structures for human use. A wider definition of architecture includes the design of a constructed environment as a whole. From the macro level of how a building matches with its environmental context, like urban design, town planning, and landscape architecture, to the micro level of physical construction of architectural details and sometimes hardware and furniture. Advancements in building materials together with design have a major impact on a building's earthquake safety. Earthquakes occur in many parts of the world, sometimes with great regularity. The magnitude of an earthquake is measured by the Richter seismic scale, while the severity of an earthquake is measured in terms of damage and lives lost. The damage and casualties are related to more the strength of the tremor, but also to population density and the quality of building construction. Earthquake proofing for buildings is an essential issue in geologically unstable areas and will prevent or reduce the loss of human lives in the process. Less rigidity in buildings and a combination of flexing and tensile strength allows for more resistance to earthquakes. Lightness of the building material reduces likelihood of injuries or of people becoming trapped if the building does collapse. The most crucial parts of the house that need to be light or shockproof are the roof. The walls themselves can also be made shockproof with new structures. Modern architecture is influenced by the requirement to control greenhouse gas emissions by using solar panels, insulation, and the direction of the sun's path to maximize sun energy. Modern architecture is generally distinguished by an implementation of the belief that the resources available and practical necessities establish the effects that are produced by architecture. One of the imminent architectural fashions arising today is using construction materials such that the buildings can be sustained. Sustainable buildings incorporate the materials that are environmentally friendly. Designers focus on buildings that address the environmental concerns of the modern world. Human beings spend approximately 70% of their time in buildings on average. Therefore, even a little enhancement in efficiency can transform into substantial energy savings and environmental value. Architectural designs endeavour to incorporate solar heating and cooling in the building by a proper selection of the building direction, taking the sun path into account. Other architectural features that are considered are an excellent insulation and roofs designed to absorb rainwater instead of challenging city drainage systems. Additional future architectural fashions may incorporate agriculture into urban environments for interior or vertical farming. As former CEO and co-founder of Apple, Steve Jobs helped create products and technology that transform the way we consume music, TV, movies, and books. A creative visionary, Jobs' innovations such as the iPod and its counterpart, the online iTunes Store, revolutionized the industry and how music was distributed and purchased. Apple introduced iTunes in 2001, a few months before it would release the now ubiquitous iPod. At the time, it was not a music store, but a rip-and-burn library service only available for Mac users. It initially was viewed with great skepticism by record companies for its ability to make digital copies of music, something the industry thought would lead to piracy. When Apple rolled out iTunes for the masses in early 2003, the music industry was at a point of transition and chaos. Entering the new millennium, albums were enjoying blockbuster sales of several million units for its superstar artists, and profits were booming. Yet the threat of Napster and other forms of illegal downloading threatened to eviscerate these profits, as many music fans were starting to get used to the idea that music, and loads of it, could be free. Apple's iTunes entered into that landscape with a concept that wasn't exactly new. Yet iTunes, with its simple interface, its simple concept, 99 US cents per song, and revolutionary MP3 device, the iPod, made it the golden standard. The entry of Apple and its leader Steve Jobs into the music world was more than a success. It was a phenomenon. iTunes has redefined the listening experience and has largely become the way that music is consumed. When kids play after school, they aren't always in the same place together. Advances in video game systems and computer games allow game players to play against one another via the internet. Players can don headsets to have multi-party conversations while they play, creating a virtual group experience, while in reality, each player is alone. Some educators, scholars and scientists have expressed concerns about the effects of communication technologies. Students and professors of the Janus Project wrote a series of essays in 2009 highlighting the social, moral and ethical impacts of modern communication changes. They worry that heavy use of electronic communications, such as email, social networking, texting, instant messaging, and networked video games, has diminished kids' and adults' social skills. The advent of social networking sites and platforms such as Facebook, MySpace, Twitter and LinkedIn changed not only interpersonal communications, but also marketing and business strategies. Through social networks, we stay connected to family and everyday friends, and often reunite with long-lost friends from childhood, high school and college. Social networking also allows people to share their daily lives and thoughts with one another through outbound messages and walls that signal all of their connections. Although some use social networking sites for limited communication, others spend large periods of their day communicating with contacts through both computer and mobile social networking interfaces. From the wheel to the supersonic jet, humanity has made leaps and bounds in transportation. Many people today take for granted the very means of travel available to them. Environmental design is an emerging topic in railroad technology. New low-impact electric and hybrid trains reduce overall carbon emissions. Train manufacturers have started utilising hydrogen technology for propulsion, with carbon emissions only coming from the manufacturing of the hydrogen itself. Electric trains have always had no carbon emissions because they are run entirely by internal electric motors. However, the means of generating the electricity used to power these motors was predominantly by burning fossil fuels or coal, both of which produce a large amount of carbon emissions. With the emergence of clean energy generation, electrical trains actually run with very low environmental impact. Electric vehicles and low-emission cars like the VW Blue Motion or the hybrid Toyota Prius are often labelled green cars and hailed as a technological solution to the environmental problems associated with automobiles today. Provided they run on electricity generated from renewables, electric cars do go some way toward addressing the issues of oil dependency and greenhouse gas emissions, as well as air and noise pollution from cars idling around densely populated cities. But if they run on energy generated from coal-fired power, then they merely transfer pollution from cities to rural locations and do nothing to reduce emissions. Even if they are run on renewables, the promise of green cars certainly does not address many of the more fundamental environmental, economic and social concerns associated with cars. Even if engineers were able to produce a completely green car, one that doesn't pollute at any stage of its life cycle, it would be an ineffective technological fix. In most cities, it's the sheer number of cars on city roads which provides the greatest challenge to making our cities livable. Rather than a solely technological solution focused on energy and emissions, behavioural and cultural change is necessary. This would see more emphasis on decreasing automobile dependence. In future, we should look at the way we use cars rather than just focusing on the energy they use. Aviation is one of the major transforming technologies of the modern world. In 2011, the European Commission, in close coordination with Airbus, leading European airlines and key European biofuel producers, had launched an exciting new industry-wide initiative to speed up the commercialisation of aviation biofuels in Europe. The European Advanced Biofuels Flight Path Initiative is a roadmap with clear milestones to achieve an annual production of 2 million tonnes of sustainably produced biofuel for aviation by 2020. The Biofuels Flight Path is a shared and voluntary commitment by its members to support and promote the production, storage and distribution of sustainably produced drop-in biofuels for use in aviation. It also targets establishing appropriate financial mechanisms to support the construction of industrial, first-of-a-kind advanced biofuel production plants. The US Centennial of Flight Commission was established in 1999 to encourage the broadest national and international participation in the celebration of 100 years of powered flight. It publicised and encouraged a number of programs, projects and events intended to educate people about the history of aviation.
With the end of the oil era approaching and climate change progressing faster than most models have been predicting, the utilisation of space is essential not only for communications, but also for the logistics of survival through things such as weather satellites, agricultural monitoring, GPS, and climate science.
The future of space travel will probably have many different faces and will be guided by many different individuals and companies. For more than 40 years, space travel has been exclusively dominated by national governments. The problem is that a cheaper method of getting into space has not emerged. This has started to change as private entrepreneurs are starting to invest in private spacecraft and looking to expand access to space to the masses. The venture that is furthest along is Richard Branson's Virgin Galactica. This is a venture that has managed to make a private craft that can escape the Earth's atmosphere. If the trend continues, the following decades can see space travel become as affordable as taking a commercial aeroplane flight. As the decade unfolds, huge strides are expected in combating heart disease, cancer, and a host of other sicknesses that plague humanity. Biotech research holds great promise to correct many human flaws, including vulnerability to disease and telltale signs of aging. Using stem cells and genetic engineering techniques, scientists are learning to regrow damaged organs, muscles and bones to rejuvenate damaged and aging bodies. New home monitoring systems designed to keep patients out of the hospital and get them more involved in managing their own health will revolutionise tomorrow's medical care. Improved electronic record keeping and groundbreaking innovative medical equipment also promise a bright outlook for healthcare. Futurists predict by 2020, most doctor visits will not require a personal appearance. Consultation will take place via smartphones, rarely requiring physical face-to-face visits to a physician's office. Doctors will text recommendations for diet, physical activities and other healthcare advice directly to patients. Throughout history, advances in information and communication technologies, energy and transportation technologies, biotechnology and life sciences, agriculture and industry, weapons technologies, and other scientific technical fields have all played important roles in driving changes in the ways that men and women conduct their affairs. Given the magnitude of change that the revolution in science and technology has potential to induce, it is vitally important that we understand how this revolution has changed, is changing, and will continue to change our world. Man is a fortunate species. Over thousands of years, our intelligence has given us tools and technology, art and science, society and civilization. We now possess a treasure house of man's great achievements.